from the Mercy One studio.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. It's time to hear from the top Christian litigators in the nation who have come forward to tell us the truth and help us defend our faith.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano, is in session.
And good Thursday morning from the Mercy One Studios in West Des Moines. I'm Deacon Mike Mano, and along with me is Gina Knoll. How are you this morning, Gina?
Good morning.
I'm tripping over
well.
my tongue here. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we had a little rush this morning. We had some conversations going on in here, so
that's right.
I think we can get focused now. And
did we solve all the problems of the universe now?
No, I feel like we never have enough time for that.
No.
Well, I noticed this week in the news, they're talking about less than 50 days for the election.
Right.
And it seems to be our focus each week. Mm-hmm. And we celebrated the Our Lady of Sorrows.
Our Lady of Sorrows, right.
And, our patron saint is the defender of our faith, mm-hmm. St. Michael the Archangel. But I really believe that Our Mary of Sorrows can also be effective with the stories that we never see. How do we get out of this mess? How does faith become protected in our society? And I really believe Our Lady of Sorrows can help with that.
I think so, too. And there's nothing more powerful than the rosary.
No, absolutely.
It's the most powerful weapon that we have.
As people of faith and Catholics, absolutely.
Lock and load, as they say.
Pray away.
Let's pray away. Yeah, and that's very important. And we're going to be talking about a couple of things today too. And we have to make a schedule adjustment announcement.
Yes, if you watch the Facebook post, we have to make an update.
Yeah, that's right. We had Mike Gonzalez, who is from the Heritage Foundation, who's going to speak to us today on the critical race theory. He's going to be with us next week at the same time. And we'll tell you why in a minute. But we're going to have Jonathan Butcher, again, from the Heritage Foundation. When they take somebody away, they usually replace them for us. And we're going to be talking, he's a senior policy analyst for the Center for Educational Policy at the Heritage Foundation. We're going to talk about what the schools don't want parents to know. And
he's written some really strong articles about the power of the teachers union.
Right. And I had them right up on my little computer here, and I lost them.
It's a
little scrambled here this morning. But he will
we'll
be
get
here.
It together.
But Gonzalez can't make it because of all things, and this has been happening more and more often recently. This morning at this time, he has a meeting at the White House. Now, I don't know what lengths they will go through to get out of meeting with us. Apparently, the president is the alternative for us. But we've had a number already this year of people that have had to postpone because they've had something to do with the White House. We've even had a 2-year-old tape that we had to provide to the White House for somebody that was being considered for a position in the administration. And so,
yes, I don't quite remember any of that going on under the previous administration.
No, it didn't.
Our show wasn't affected by that White House.
It didn't. But and a lot of this has to do with the Heritage Foundation, because we have contacts with the Heritage Foundation for some of our guests. But not just the Heritage Foundation. Remember last week, Father Pavone?
Right.
Hanging
Priest
up the phone with us and running over. Yeah, he had a meeting at the White House to go to afterwards. So we are dealing with, I guess, people that have some influence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're also going to discuss the churches under the COVID restrictions in each of the states. Mm-hmm. I'm really glad to see that the Faith and Freedom Alliance has set up a hotline or a division to help churches throughout the United States with these issues.
Right, and that'll be our first guest this morning, Robert Tyler, with he's chief counsel for the Advocates for Faith and Freedom, and he is dealing with several cases there. We're going to talk to him about one, but he's also got this new YouTube thing that he's been putting on that anybody can listen to, where he's been talking about a lot of these issues, and so we'll talk to him about that and see what's going on, because it's a mess out there some places. They're fighting you tooth and nail to keep the church closed.
Right.
Now,
right.
where's that coming from?
And the restrictions are not parallel with the similar organizations, secular organizations in the States.
Right.
So,
and so when we say, where's it coming from? Well, you know where it's coming from,
right.
The bowels of you-know-where. Yeah. So anyway, but that's what we have coming up. And do you have a prayer to open us up with?
I do. Let's settle ourselves a little bit with a prayer.
Yes.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God of peace, bring your peace to our violent world. Peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations of this earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. Strengthen us in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign among the nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Gina. And we're going to take a break, and we will be right back. And when we come back, we'll have Robert Tyler, Chief Counsel for the Advocates for Faith and Freedom, with us. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio in Des Moines.
Hi, this is Father John Ricardo, and I want to thank Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory for underwriting Christ is the Answer. Losing a loved one, as we know, is never easy, and it can leave you feeling lost and even hopeless at times. But Caldwell Parish helps ease that burden by sincerely caring both about your loss and about your faith. Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory is Des Moines' only Catholic-owned and operated funeral home. Their number is 515-276-0551 or online at caldwellparish.com.
Thank you, Blessman International, for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Everyone lives their life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. How we use that time directly affects if our life will leave a significant impact or not. Each year, Blessman International leads Central Iowans on a 12-day, all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the Sports Report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. And you're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. I'm Deacon Mike Mano here with Gina Knoll. And with us by phone is Robert Tyler, who is the Chief Counsel for the Advocates for Faith and Freedom. Robert, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good.
Glad to be back again.
Yes. It wasn't that long ago that we had you. It was just a couple of months, and we'll keep having you back because of what you do out there. Let's talk first of all about Godspeak Calvary Chapel. You're involved with the church there that the county and the city don't want to allow it to reopen. You want to kind of give us a little bit of the background there?
Sure. The focus is on the county. It's not really the city, but basically what's happening at this point in time is they have I'm not sure exactly what the status was when we last talked, but they got a temporary restraining order against the church from reopening, and Pastor Rob McCoy said, we're going to meet. We're going to do what God's called us to do because, these are inalienable God-given rights, not something, not a right given to us by the government. And we are going to meet. So they did. The county then sought to obtain contempt charges against the pastor, and they did. They got a sanction against the church and the pastor for $3,000. Thereafter, they basically have sat back and really haven't done much. The church continues to meet in defiance of the contempt orders, and we have a hearing coming up on a motion for preliminary injunction, and we're challenging the entire underlying foundation of the governor's authority here in the first place. One, that this act upon which he relies is really an unconstitutional law that gives one individual complete authority over the entire state. This is similar to what's happening in other states as well, where
I know in Pennsylvania the governor just got struck down, didn't he, on doing something similar?
Yes, and so we are, hoping to have some success along those lines here in California. So in a couple of weeks we'll be arguing that in court, and we have numerous other cases that we have filed and are in process of filing, challenging the authority of the governor in a similar fashion, from a pastor who has been cited for doing baptisms at the beach to schools who have reopened and said, we're gonna meet. We've got a right to a Christian education, and we're going to educate our kids. And so we're finding that we just have to proceed, and so many pastors and church leaders are just stepping up, saying enough is enough. We're not going to allow a tyrant to be able to just continue operating with basically immunity.
Let me ask you this question, just kind of set the stage for our listeners here. What are some of the restrictions like for similar organizations? In other words, can bowling alleys open? Roller rinks open? Can Target open? I mean, it seems to me that if he wants to close down everything, that's one thing. But if he's picking and choosing, that's quite another.
Well, he's been picking and choosing from the beginning. For example, Costco, grocery stores, abortion clinics, liquor stores, they are all allowed to open. They're allowed to sell their product. However, the church has to stay closed. Now, other typical assemblies are not necessarily allowed to reopen either. So you're not finding, the theaters generally are not open. But what this governor's done is he's created this, every time we get close to reopening, he recreates the rules, and he creates a new system of rules, and it makes it just all that more difficult. And it appears that really what's going on, this is all political, and frankly, the health director for the county of Los Angeles, one of the biggest counties around, was caught on a hot mic saying, we're not going to reopen until after the election. Now, it seems pretty obvious that what we're dealing with right now is significantly political in nature.
Mm-hmm. We've noticed that too.
Yeah, it is. It's happening all across the country. And one of the things that we tried to do is we filed a lawsuit directly in the California Supreme Court trying to reopen the California schools. And we thought, what happens in California gets exported to the rest of the country. I think most people experience that.
Unfortunately.
So, we'd like you to keep your senator there, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't want her anywhere near the Oval Office, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we do what we can over here. We're battling, realizing that what we do here is going to have a big impact on the rest of the country. And if we can get schools reopened, if we can get churches reopened, it's going to just spread to the rest of the country as well. And we're finding that what's happening now is the California Teachers Association, this union, has the most political influence in the state of California, and they are preventing the schools from reopening. They want to defund the police as a condition of reopening, and they have all of these demands. They've threatened to go on strike if schools are reopened, and so the governor kowtowing to the unions is nothing new, frankly, in California.
We've had some questions about that around here. Should the schools open? And some of the teachers' unions are saying, no, we should stay home. But the funny thing is, every time I go to the grocery store, every time I go out to buy something, what I need, I'm usually waited on by a high school student. They check out your groceries and everything, and yet for some reason it's too dangerous for them to go back to school.
Let me tell you how crazy it is here in California. There is a rule in California that says schools, and mostly these are all private schools that are doing this, they can have a classroom open for up to 14 children that can come in, and they call it daycare, and they can have up to 2 adults supervising the children. But the minute they start teaching them, it's a violation of the law. And so literally what you have is, in many instances, these kids, maybe they're part of their parents are working, single parents, they need a place to have their kids, so they pay extra for their kids to go to a public school or a private school, and they go in and they're sitting there, and they're in one classroom, and immediately next door is a teacher who is doing virtual learning, and that virtual learning is occurring for the student who's in the classroom next door, who's sitting on an iPad. And the student, I've heard, this happened multiple times. Why can't I just sit in the other room where my teacher is? And instead, there was 14 other kids. And so this is really the power the union has, is that they can have this ludicrous rule. And so we're just having to, trying to fight back. And, unfortunately, even the judges are afraid to go against the governor and afraid about this virus. And, granted, it's real. I mean, I know it's real. I just talked to a pastor friend who, as we all probably have known 1 or 2 people who have had it.
I have a priest friend that has been quarantined for some time because of his age and health, and he can't get out and do things. Yeah, I know it's real.
Yeah. But at the same time, these rules, what they're putting up is, they're using it as an opportunity. Yeah. This progressive agenda is using it as an opportunity to recreate rules for voting, recreate rules for going to school, recreate policing. It's just a tragedy of what's happening.
Well, they're not going to let a crisis go to waste. Isn't that what, Gene, isn't that what they said?
Yeah. Yep, not going to let a crisis go to waste. And so, thank the Lord, we have some courageous ministers out there who are saying, let's stand up and let's fight back. We need to be in church. The Bible says, do not forsake the gathering of the brethren. And that's important. Yeah. And, there's watching Mass online, watching communion online. It's like watching a campfire on television. Yeah. It's not the same thing.
Oh, that's a good analogy. I am particularly interested or concerned with the denial of our Supreme Court issuing any injunctions in these situations that are clearly inequitable violations of the church's rights, especially in Nevada with the casinos opened and the churches closed. Mm-hmm. How is that causing problems for you and your defenses for these churches reopening?
Yeah, it is. The fact that, the Supreme Court had the opportunity to correct the circumstances.
In multiple cases, not just the one in Nevada, but in multiple situations.
Yeah. There was the one in Nevada where casinos are treated better because they are allowed to have half of their capacity, whereas a church in Nevada was only allowed up to 50 people indoors, regardless of the size of the church. So you could have a church the same size as a casino, but only 50 people allowed inside. Mm-hmm. And so that's just an outrageous distinction, a violation of equal protection laws, the free exercise provisions. Now, that has had a dramatic impact because if the Supreme Court of the United States, and really, let's be frank, it all comes down to Justice Roberts.
One justice.
Right.
And I don't understand how what we all believe to be a conservative Catholic man, a judge who is going to be on our side, would basically ignore the God-given rights, to ignore the Constitution, and something so blatant would allow this to occur. But I think what's happened is, this fear has hit a lot of these judges, where they're afraid, thinking, if I rule in favor of these churches, if I allow churches to reopen and meet again, and someone gets sick and dies, man, I might have blood on my hands. And I can understand the potential concern over that, but it's not justified, because people have to make decisions for themselves. That's what America's all about. It's about individual liberty and our right to make decisions for ourselves.
Right, and we could end all traffic accidents by banning cars too.
Absolutely, tell people you can't drive. But here, this has had a huge impact, because a lot of judges will look at that and say, "Man, here's the highest court of the land," and if they're afraid, who am I to go against the governor's orders in California? If we already had one case that went up to the California Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court, and that case was a little different. It was a challenge to the limitation on the number of people that were allowed indoors, because at the time indoor worship was being permitted. Actually, the governor backed down after we said, look, we had 2,000 pastors sign or 15, I don't remember, it was a large number of pastors signed the Declaration of Essentiality, saying we're going to reopen regardless of what happens, regardless of whether the governor allows us to reopen.
Well, this is certainly an area where there's a lot of litigation, but I wanted to turn the subject just a little bit to this new, I guess, YouTube stuff that you're working on called Ministry Under Fire 2020. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and where our listeners might be able to tune in to these broadcasts that you have.
Oh, sure. We have we started a YouTube channel, and what we're doing is right now we're putting a series on called Ministry Under Fire, and for the first session that we did was a week ago Wednesday, and we basically addressed the cases and the things that we're working on, the numerous cases here in California in particular, and what the status are, and what we're looking for, and what people are interested in. When are we going to be able to reopen? And I don't have that answer, but I can tell you what we're fighting. And so that's on the first one. This last one, we talked about really reopening procedures in California and elsewhere. It's important for churches and ministries to understand what their rights and responsibilities are when it comes to reopening. Frankly, we are while we are litigating and arguing on behalf of churches to be able to reopen and do in-person services, there are some responsibilities I think that churches need to recognize, and that is the safety of their congregants. And so there's some reopening procedures. We talk about that for schools and churches. Next week we talk about unemployment issues and government funding the following week. And then in addition to that, under Ministry Under Fire, that's something that normally what we do is we do for ministry leaders. We were doing it with a seminary out here in California, and basically putting this on to help educate ministry leaders with regard to legal responsibilities. And but also on our...
I was going to say, how do we find those? How does a listener find those?
Well, you can go to YouTube and just type in Advocates for Faith and Freedom, and we'll pop up there.
Okay. And can you find it through your webpage too? faithfreedom.com.
I hope so.
Okay.
That's a good
Well,
question.
it's very new. It's very new.
Yeah, very new.
I'm sure you could. I'm sure it's on our website. If it's not, actually, after we get off this phone call, I will talk to our people to make sure it is. I'm sure it is. I'm sure they've already thought of that.
Okay, because I've seen the first one that you did, and it was done
good.
very well.
Right.
Do you see it too, Gina?
Yeah, it was super helpful, and it pointed out a lot of societal things I hadn't taken into consideration. And that's one more question on the churches. We're 6 months into this coronavirus, and as many states as there's that many restrictions and ways of restricting the practice of our faith. How some of them are doing very well and could be held out as to say, look, we've been doing it this way and there have been no problems. Are we using those as precedent in some of these cases?
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, it kind of falls on deaf ears in many instances.
Well, they just want to hold on to the power they have and not give in.
Yeah. Yeah, and even the judges, we point that out, and Godspeak, we brought up in the very beginning, is a perfect example. Here's a church that has been meeting since April in person. They are, in that circumstance, Godspeak has not had one instance where coronavirus has spread within the church, or there's been coronavirus traced back to someone because they went to the church. They're aware of nobody in their church having had died because of COVID-19. And so it's one of these things where you say, we know it's real. We're not going to say it's not real.
No, right.
But who gets sick and when they get sick it's pretty it's pretty easy to know who's going to get sick. We all know it's persons with comorbidities and it's persons who are elderly and they're going to get, if they get it, they get real sick. And so those are the individuals that, don't go to church.
Well, I'm the irony of all of the troubles in California, whether it's COVID or the fires or whatever may be affecting the citizens of the state, you would think that they would want their prayer warriors in their churches fighting in their defense in a spiritual way.
That's if they believed in prayer. If they believed in all that.
There are believers there, and they could fight the good fight for the citizens of California.
Yeah, that's what they're doing now. One last thing before we have to go, Robert. Are they still surveilling Godspeak?
I don't know. I haven't heard or seen of anyone there, but I don't think so right now because, quite honestly, the county really kind of got beat up a lot. One of the things that in one of the videos that's on our YouTube channel, if you go to it, you'll see how I basically laid out the case and showed in the contempt trial. I was able to show how the spies who came to surveil the church, these code enforcement people, themselves were not wearing masks. They were not socially distanced. They were two people from different families sitting in a car. All of these things violating the very rules they are there to enforce. And I really pointed out the hypocrisy. Of course, did the media pick it up? No. This is where I would love for your folks to be able to go on and take that video. It's about the hypocrisy. It was done probably about 1 month ago, 3 weeks to 1 month ago. And you'll see I'm standing there. There's a TV in the background to my side. And I use that and I show these pictures that we presented at trial. Honestly, the reason why I want that out, I want that to get spread. I want the word to spread about the hypocrisy, because if this was really about the health and safety of our community, you wouldn't have the same code enforcement violating the rules that they're supposedly there to enforce.
Right. We'll post that right next to the video of Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done.
Exactly.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much, Robert, for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. God bless you in your work, and we'll have you back again.
Lord bless you both. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we will be right back after these messages.
Thank you, Blessed International, for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Everyone lives their life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. How we use that time directly affects if our life will leave a significant impact or not. Each year, Blessman International leads Central Iowans on a 12-day, all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, light commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Dowling Catholic Sports on Iowa Catholic Radio is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Greg Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at Ashworth and 60th Street in West Des Moines, 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. Ashworth Vision Clinic.
High pressure is moving in from the north with cooler air, and that'll keep us in the low 70s today with mostly sunny skies. We'll drop to about 49 overnight and mostly clear, and then tomorrow a little bit cooler, upper 60s and sunny. Looking at the weekend, it could be a little bit breezy Saturday, low 70s, and then 75 Sunday. The weather is brought to you by Divine Treasures, a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. I'm meteorologist Steve Hamilton on Iowa Catholic Radio.
And we are back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we're joined right now with Jonathan Butcher, who is the Senior Policy Analyst for the Center for Educational Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Jonathan, thank you for joining us this morning.
Great to be with you.
Appreciate you taking the time to join us. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've written about educational policy. One of the things that I noticed was on your website, or on the Heritage website not too long ago, was about what schools don't want parents to know.
Yeah, I think what we've seen during the pandemic is a curious period in U.S. history where parents have been home with their students and schools have only been offering content online. And that gives parents a unique window, I would say, into what their children are being taught. And that's, I think that's almost historically unique, that parents have been able to see directly what their students are being exposed to.
And that is kind of interesting. I know there was a discussion or a story anyway, I think it was out of Kentucky, where the school district was asking parents to sign a promise that they would not view what the children were viewing, wouldn't attend the classes with their children online.
Yeah, it was out of Tennessee. And, I think the district can claim that they were trying to protect student privacy by saying that people in a home shouldn't be watching what students are doing. But, that's nonsense. This is a private home. These are families that want to know, especially with younger children, that they're able to follow whatever a district is delivering, through an online platform. And look, we haven't even touched yet in our discussion now about the types of things that are infiltrating curriculum in the United States. So there are things that parents should be looking for.
Well, and I just recently heard a story about a book that's being taught. I want to say fourth grade level in a Pennsylvania school, but part of a bigger curriculum called Cultural Proficiency Curriculum. But the book was called Not My Idea, a book about whiteness that teaches that complaining about protesters is racism, and or supporting your local police makes you a racist.
Yeah, and it's examples like that are coming out of the Black Lives Matter movement. And that movement has, in fact, created a whole package of materials and put it online, made it available to teachers, and is saying that teachers should be using materials like the one you just named. Or I found a first grade, a textbook for first grade math teachers that was talking about how white supremacy is a part of American currency. I mean, that's, it's a pretty heady topic, I think, for a college student, but to use that in first grade, it makes you wonder how much nuance or, thorough description that it would really get.
I'm flabbergasted that this stuff is creeping into our curriculum. The 1619 Project, I guess, is in the northeast portion of the United States. There's quite a few schools that have already adopted that retelling of American history.
Well, and that is, equally, if not more, concerning. The 1619 Project, as many of your listeners may know, is a project from the New York Times Magazine, supported by the Pulitzer Center, that tries to reframe American history around the idea that slavery is the center of everything that's happened. And it is full of factual errors. And what's been fascinating to watch is that award-winning historians, people that have written some of the foundational historical works about the American Revolution, the Civil War, and slavery itself, have pointed to factual errors. And the New York Times has refused to make substantive corrections. There's one essay in that project in particular that is just egregiously wrong in its description of the American economy and what slavery meant to GDP in the 19th century. And there are some serious factual problems, not to mention the overarching ideological message.
Yeah, one of the problems with that I noticed right away was that supposedly we declared our independence from Great Britain because Britain was going to abolish slavery.
Well, and that, of course, cannot be supported. Britain at the time had some court cases related to the freeing of slaves, but Britain wouldn't do that until the 19th century. And in fact, there were incidents where Britain was encouraging slaves to come fight for them, but one of the military leaders who encouraged that actually was a part of the slave trade in the Caribbean, or a part of keeping slaves in the Caribbean. So, this, I think it was more opportunistic there. There is no evidence to support the idea that maintaining slavery was such a necessity for the colonists, because newspapers weren't reporting that Britain was looking to take away slaves. It wasn't, the conversation really among the founders at the time, really from 1776 until the Civil War, it was a constant debate over how to prevent slavery spread. And in the northern states that eventually did outlaw slavery, they, preceded the eventual, emancipation.
Now, in all of this, with the indoctrination and all this in the school, what roles are the teachers' unions playing? Well, the teacher unions do support the Black Lives Matter movement. They have pages on their websites. The NEA, I know for certain. And they, I think that they are certainly sympathetic to some of these progressive ideologies because, they feel like they align with this idea that there's a constant battle between the workers and their employers, right? I think that's unions kind of function with that mindset, right? That they are there to be a part of a struggle for, worker rights. And the reality today is that workers, especially
in schools, I think, have more freedom and have more say today over where they work, how, what their conditions are than ever before.
Exactly.
I think it's long been known that that this is not the 1940s, 50s, 60s, right, even 70s, and things have really changed. I think the most concerning thing I would suggest out of what's happening now from teacher unions is their attempts to keep schools closed with demands that have nothing to do with education. So, there are local chapters demanding defunding of police, the repayment of mortgages, or the forgiveness of, mortgage loans or rents for people affected by the pandemic, which I think includes all of us. Things like that, right? Don't comport with the idea that we should be talking about what's best for students.
Well, the most shocking thing for me with the teachers' unions and their demands, in some areas, they're demanding that the private schools, the parochial schools, the charter schools shut down. If the public schools aren't open, they should not allow any schools to be open. How much power do they think they have?
Well, and absolutely. And this, it's in line with what they've done in the past to file lawsuits to block any form of parent choice in education. So I think that they are clearly have only in mind the idea that students should be assigned to a public school.
Overall, how does this help or hurt the child that's sitting in the classroom or in front of his computer, as it may be?
Well, I think that long-term virtual education for parents who have not chosen that instructional technique can be harmful to students, right? There are full-time virtual schools that do it very well and have been successful for many years, but parents choose those schools, right? I mean, parents have a reason. A child may be homebound. A child may be an athlete who travels all the time to, play their sport, tennis, golf, what have you. A parent may not feel safe in a local school and so chooses to have their child learn at home. That's different from saying, okay, all schools are closed for in-person learning. Everyone must learn online right now. And that puts families who don't think it's best for their children in a very vulnerable position because they have few options available to them. I'll say yesterday I was looking at a story out of Detroit that found that a teacher logged in for the first day of school. She was expecting 14 of her students to be logged in there with her and ready to go, and only one student showed up, and that student's headphones didn't work. So it was not an
epic fail. My children might say that was an epic fail. And we're seeing that all throughout. I know some of the, anecdotally, my kids' students, I had a conversation after the March shutdown, and he said as the school, maybe the first couple of classes he had all of his kids, but then by the end of the semester, they weren't even emailing him back. So it's very difficult for kids who have traditionally been taught in a classroom to go through this, and my heart aches for them because really they're being forced to do something that they have not been equipped or learned to do.
Well, and we certainly want students to be safe, right? I mean, we want students in schools to only open, when the community and when the teachers have decided, parents, teachers, educators, health professionals have said, look, our case rate is such that, we feel like we can get kids back. But all of that being said, if there is no option for in-person learning at all, it really limits what families are able to do. And like you were saying, some of these closures have been, or some of these district online system crashes have been widespread. I mean, the entire state of North Carolina was having trouble at the beginning of this school year just a few weeks ago. Hartford, Connecticut, Houston, Philadelphia, I mean, pretty major cities were demonstrating that traditional school districts are simply not able to come up with an ad hoc system for delivering online content. And, they should have recognized that over the spring and made adjustments accordingly.
Right. I think also we're seeing that the teachers union, for me, in many cases represents the what we can't do and what we won't do, and on the other side, they're battling what we can do and what we will do, and the creativity to deliver the services to our families and our students.
Well, for certain, especially as we've watched parents create pandemic pods or learning pods, these small groups of families getting together, and usually neighborhood kids in small groups to either follow the district's online platform and make sure it's going well, or coming up with their own curriculum to educate students while schools are closed. I mean, this is talk about an ideal civil society response to a public system failure. This is the kind of thing I think that we should be proud of. I mean, we should be proud that parents are taking matters into their own hands and not waiting for districts to solve every problem for them.
Well, and even some teachers, our last guest described a situation where in California they're not allowed to participate in school. So they have these things called daycares, and I'm sorry, not allowed to participate in school in the building in person. So they have these daycares with 14 students in a room, and the teacher's on the other side of the wall with her computer teaching the kids in the room on the other side electronically, because that's what there is a lot of creativity and ingenuity in following the guidelines as they're directed from above.
Yeah. That brings me to probably, Jonathan, a question that may be a little unfair to you, but I'm going to ask it anyway, okay? As we are looking at education these days and putting things under the microscope as is being done now, what changes in education and in educational policy do you see coming out of this in the future? Again, it's probably an unfair question for you, but do your best.
It is a good question, because I think there are important lessons that we've learned. I would say, for one, lawmakers can create private learning options, even in the most difficult of circumstances. So New Hampshire, South Carolina, Oklahoma, the governors in those states created private scholarship options using federal money that had already been appropriated to their state over the summer to go into effect this fall. So that's evidence that where there's a will, right, there's a way. And if lawmakers really want to create more options for families, they can do so, and they can do it with some flexibility over what Washington is affording them through spending. I would say, for two, we should be prepared for parents to take matters into their own hands. What we're seeing from some of the largest districts in the U.S. is that the first day of school had markedly lower attendance from students. So enrollment was not the same on the first day of school in places like Mesa in Arizona, even in Los Angeles, down in Broward County when students were told to log in. So, there's an example here that parent preferences will shift if schools don't, if schools go against what their opinions are on what is best for their children. So I think the practical application of that point is that when we see teacher union school closures in the future, when they go on strike to close schools, I think parents don't have to wait anymore for the school to reopen. I think they should be prepared to take their student somewhere else. I think they can be reminded by policymakers that, listen, if a teacher union is going to go on strike and close your school, remember during the pandemic, parents formed learning pods. We looked for private school scholarships. We took advantage of education savings accounts in states like North Carolina, Arizona, Florida. Arizona in particular has had a significant increase in the number of applications for education savings accounts. So, all of these, I think, bode well for the future.
Very good. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for being with us. We're pretty much out of time right now, but if anybody wants to read anything more about what you've written, they can go to the heritage.org website and find you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Jonathan.
Thank you for being with us. We certainly appreciate it, and God bless you in your work, and we will probably have you back one of these days.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we will be right back after these messages.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Dowling Catholic Sports on Iowa Catholic Radio is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Greg Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at Ashworth and 60th Street in West Des Moines, 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. Ashworth Vision Clinic.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, Dr. Christine Mulcahy, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
Thank you, Skeffington's Formal Wear, for sponsoring Dowling Catholic High School football. In business since 1951, Skeffington's Formal Wear offers quality service, style, and selection, providing tuxedos, suits, and casual groom attire for weddings, proms, and any other special occasion. Skeffington's Formal Wear, with convenient locations in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Davenport, Coralville, and Ankeny. All locations are family-owned and operated by members in their respective communities, fitting you for life celebrations. Online at skeffingtons.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. Information about Pharmatan and other products at ImogeneIngredients.com. Paul and Paul are members of St. Augustine's Knights of Columbus and encourage their brother knights to keep standing for their faith.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Storm Alert Weather is provided by Divine Treasures. Divine Treasures is a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. Their mission is to help Catholics know, love, and keep their faith in our Lord Jesus Christ and His Church. Divine Treasures is where you can find great Catholic books, beautiful Bibles, rosaries, jewelry, statues, and religious gifts for those memorable events in your life. Divine Treasures, 5701 Hickman Road, Des Moines, 515-255-5230. Thank you to Divine Treasures for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
And we're back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. Gina, a couple of great guests we had today.
We did have some good guests.
Yes. We always have good guests.
Yeah, I'm sure. We do. We really do. Yeah. But the stories from around the country about the effects of COVID and the restrictions on our churches, they're very varied in there, but the outcome is the same. People are being denied their opportunity to practice their faith, and it makes me mad. And I pray for those families. I think here in Iowa we're doing a little bit better than some, and we can go to our services without surveillance by government authorities. Oh, I can't imagine. That doesn't even sound like the United States to me.
No, it's like the Gestapo sitting outside in a car watching everybody going to church. And where was it? One place they asked the pastor to provide them with the names and addresses and phone numbers
of everyone
that
attended, and emails, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. That's not the United States.
I am glad to see that the advocates for faith and freedom are addressing that issue and providing pastors and communities, faith communities, opportunities.
They're out there in California, and they're pretty scrappy out there with what they're doing. Yeah, they are doing. And of course, we have a good friend, Brad Dacus from the Pacific Justice Institute out there doing a lot of the same stuff. Right, yeah. And you have to be scrappy out there because the forces against you are pretty hefty.
Well, and it doesn't sound like there's much reason going on. It's more trigger happy control issues. Anyway,
never let a crisis go to waste.
So anyway, that was interesting. Always interesting to hear the progress of a lot of those cases. And then the teachers union and the curriculum changes coming down through the pikes, and I don't know if these have always been issues or because of the pandemic they've surfaced, bubbled to the top, and we're more noticing them more. We're more in tune. The parents are more connected with the curriculum of their students.
Well, that's good that they're seeing more that's going on right now. And remember, at one of the shows we had right when we came back on the air had to do with a school district. Was it in Madison, where they were telling the kids, don't tell your parents.
Don't
this.
tell your parents.
Yeah,
we'll keep this between you and me.
Yeah, if you want to come here and dress as a girl, you can do that, and we'll call you she. And but don't tell your parents when you go home that you're a she here and a he there. Yeah.
Exactly. It makes me remember that my paradigm and the paradigm I was raised with is that as a parent, you are the primary educator, and the teacher and the schools is in partnership with you.
That's right.
And I think we've lost that.
I think so. Well, let's end with our prayer. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. That's it for this week. For Gina and myself, thank you for listening. Join us next week for another edition of Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. Until then, have a blessed and peaceful week.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano. Faith on Trial, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Iowa Catholic Radio, iowacatholicradio.com, and the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.